Hello and welcome to Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which features interviews and discussions on all issues relating to high quality in the early years and school age care sector. In our episodes, we have a range of speakers who are leaders in the areas that matter to Early Childhood Ireland members. This podcast series is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance, which offers a comprehensive range of cover at discounted premiums for both business and personal insurance products. So visit www.aricus.ie for more information. I'm Maura Corbett and I work with Early Childhood Ireland. So in this episode of the podcast, we're looking at the area of practitioner inquiry as we in Early Childhood Ireland recently introduced a new programme for members who are interested in making connections between research and practice. For this episode, I'm delighted to have Dr Lynn J McNair and Kathleen Tuite to join me for this episode to explore what practitioner inquiry is and why it can support educators, I suppose why and how it can support educators every day in their settings. So Dr Lynn J McNair is a lecturer in early childhood practice and a Frebel Research Fellow at the University of Edinburgh. She's currently the principal investigator on a 3-year Frebel Trust funded study, Frebellian Futures, and she has almost 40 years of experience working in early years education. In 2009, she was awarded an OBE for services to early years education. She's a trained Frebellian, attaining her certificate at the Frebel Institute at Roehampton University in London. She's an award-winning author. She has a passion for egalitarianism, emancipation, democracy, and her belief that children are rich, active, resourceful beings came from being a mother to Kurt and Mishka, and what she learned as she observed them playing freely as children. This way of being with children, trusting in them and their abilities and capabilities, is where she puts her energy into her work with children today. My colleague Kathleen Tuite is an early childhood specialist with the research team here in Early Childhood Ireland. She holds a master's in early years. She trained as a Martin Mayo colleague trainer. She has qualifications in adult education and has been working in the early years sector for the past 25 years. Before joining Early Childhood Ireland, Kathleen worked directly with children, managing and leading on practice and pedagogy with children from birth to 12 years. She's very passionate about supporting educators in making a difference in children's lives through transformative learning experiences. She believes that through these transformative learning experiences, educators are empowered to become critical thinkers, collaborating with others to challenge their beliefs and assumptions, and to build on their skills in providing quality care and learning environments. So I'm delighted to be joined by two such passionate, experienced early years educators. So you're both really welcome.
Thank you, Maura.
Thank you.
So Lynn, I think I'll start with you. Can you tell us, I suppose, before we get into maybe the why and the how, what exactly is practitioner inquiry? How does this type of research differ from maybe more traditional forms of research or even action research, which we've heard about before?
Okay, well, an umbrella, kind of conceptual umbrella of practitioner inquiry is that it's a form of professional development and educational research methodology. It emphasises a kind of role of practitioners as active agents, and I'll be saying a bit more about that and how they reflect and improve on their practice. It involves kind of systematic investigation, which practitioners do every day without really formalising it, in all honesty. And there are many kind of key features of it. So, reflection. So thinking about how they reflect on their practice, on their beliefs, on their assumptions. But fundamentally, it's about this kind of collaboration, so sharing insights with others and building on kind of collective knowledge. I'll all the way through, I'll talk about this important part, but the professional growth and continuous improvement is obviously key. And empowerment really, because you're valuing the expertise of the practitioners themselves and the agency that they have. And in answer to your question about how does it differ from other forms of research or action research, there are, of course, similarities across, but there are also some very different kind of characteristics. So fundamentally, it focuses on practice. So the practitioner is often at the centre of practitioner inquiry, and the actual lived and first-hand experiences of the practitioner and the children takes place in their own space, a space that they're very familiar with. And that, of course, is about relevance. So, sometimes a researcher may come in and do a piece of research in the setting because they've got a question that they're interested in. But actually, when you're doing practitioner inquiry, it's very, very key to what you're interested in finding out about. So I've often described it as a niche that the practitioner wants to scratch. I'd like to just share two little mini examples with you, if I may. One of my deputies was Karen Thompson, a wonderful woman, was really interested in mixed age groupings. And over time, she was very concerned that there were siblings that were looking over a fence at their younger sibling and pining to be beside them. And over time, she gradually broke down the barriers of that. She spoke to the children themselves, she spoke to parents, and she spoke to staff. And it took her a while. She brought the staff with her. It was a really interesting project, and one that I hope never returns to the segregated age groupings again. It was hugely beneficial. So that was something that really troubled her, and then she had this question and she wanted to resolve this issue, but she did it in a very collaborative way. And one little idea that I had, I was very keen. I'd watched our children play in the block play area, and we had carved out quite a lovely big space. But actually, their models still got knocked over, children still ran into them. And I put it to the staff that I'd like to create a whole space just for block play. Now, at first, all the staff were a bit kind of like, oh, what would that look like and everything. But we did that. And, over time, nothing happens really, really quickly, but you have an itch you want to scratch. And it was one of the best things we've ever done. And to this day, I believe the block play room still exists. The other thing that I think is really important to respond to your question about whether it's kind of how it differs from traditional research is that it's an iterative and reflective process. So, unlike kind of traditional research, which can be sometimes linear, it can be structured. Practitioner inquiry involves much more iterative kind of cycles of action. One of my students, Laura McGinn, has been studying our work on Frobelian Futures, looking at the projects on practitioner inquiry. And she said one of the significant differences for her was the change of it's not like action research where there's a beginning, a middle and an end. It's much more about a process where the practitioners are constantly looking at what they're doing and what they've put in place, which I think is wonderful, because with practitioner inquiry you're making adjustments. So I think for me there's an emphasis on collaboration. Practitioner inquiry emphasises the where the practitioners are kind of sharing their insights and experiences with one another, and I think this is really, really important. But there's a sense of collective ownership, and I'll just take you back to that mixed age groupings. That couldn't have happened without everybody being involved in it. And I said at the very beginning about the importance of professional development, that focus on supporting practitioners' ongoing growth. We noticed that in the Frobelian Futures project about the practitioners starting to view themselves as a researcher, which I thought was really important. So, and I've travelled around the world. I've been to India, China, Japan, New Zealand, Australia, Finland, all the European kind of countries, and looked at early years practice. And in New Zealand, I was really impressed with what was taking place there. And it turns out that, because I couldn't put my finger on it at the beginning, and it turns out that many of the practitioners within the 30 settings that I visited were practitioner inquirers. And I came back thinking, I want that for Scotland. I want Scottish practitioners to be involved in practitioner inquiry, because I really believe the practitioners are the ones with the expertise and the knowledge, and I think that that's really important. So where there's another point, and then I'll stop there. There's contextual kind of nuances of the findings which are specific to that community that a traditional research project may not find out. But if there's any practitioner that's listening to this podcast will absolutely know what I'm talking about when they know they've all had little ideas, they've carried out a little study, they've not formalised it maybe, but it's practitioner inquiry when they've made a change within their setting. They've maybe not followed exactly what would be a full research project, but they've definitely carried out something that's important to their particular setting that an external researcher may not do. Sorry, I hope that was okay.
No, that's kind of sums it up, I think. So, why would you encourage practitioners or educators then to get involved in this, I suppose, to kind of maybe form, because to some extent, like you said, it's something that educators do kind of all the time. They see something, they wonder, they change something, they tweak it, they maybe change it again. Before we get to the how, why would you encourage them to maybe formalize it and kind of put it under the umbrella, if you like, of practitioner inquiry?
Absolutely. Well, as I say, this little golden thread throughout this podcast will be the professional growth. So practitioners, it gives them an opportunity to deepen their understandings of practice, and learn about children, what they're learning about, gives them an opportunity to refine their skills. But one of the things that I think, why do we do research anyway? But it makes the practice current. So I think that that's really significant. The empowerment also, I cannot emphasize enough that it recognises the practitioner's expertise and agency, which is really keen. So rather than being kind of passive recipients of top-down mandates, practitioners can actively participate in shaping their own professional practice. The other thing that I really want to emphasise is the relevance to practice. So why should they do it? It's relevant to their own work. And as you mentioned there, it enhances the children's experiences and enriches them. In Falkirk, a little town in Scotland, they carried out a woodwork project. Pete Muirhouse of Rebellion came and shared his expertise with parents and staff about woodwork, and that was a wonderful project because the parents were really able to celebrate what their children were doing. They started really recognising what their children were doing, and this was one of the practitioner inquiry projects that emerged from Rebellion Futures, and it's transformed parents' understandings of woodwork, and children are able to share their expertise with their parents. It's wonderful. And so what we've done there is I'm currently in the process of writing a paper about it because it's such an excellent piece of work and the practitioners can really celebrate their expertise. I've also said that it's specific to context, so children and staff's interests are built on, and maybe for me this is one of my real it's all important, but I love the fact that practitioner inquiry fosters a culture of professional collaboration and continuous improvement. And they're building on kind of evidence-based decision making. In Falkirk again and in Orkney, Professor Alison Clark has been introducing the concept of slow pedagogy. Now, you may say, oh, Lynn, you're contradicting yourself because this is a researcher going into space, but she very much took these ideas in and worked alongside these practitioner inquirers. And in Falkirk, they had a project called Marvellous Mealtimes, and it has absolutely transformed how children eat in those spaces. So it's enabled them to make kind of informed adjustments about their practice. And this isn't something that's cyclical. It's not going to end. The process is growing. They're talking about how to introduce slow pedagogy into different parts of the spaces. Really, really wonderful. And the practitioners are able to share that expertise with others.
What about the ethical considerations? You know, it's one of the primary considerations we all have when we're undertaking any kind of research with children. How do you, and then we'll get into kind of the methods and the methodology, but I'd like to hear your thoughts a bit on the ethical considerations.
Of course, and as you know, and I'm a researcher, so I'm absolutely aware of ethical considerations, but they're absolutely, as you say, crucial when engaging in practitioner inquiry to ensure the integrity and of all, and respecting all, and the well-being of everyone. And of course, we need to get informed consent, you know, from the parents, but also children, because we want them to be involved. If they assent, we need to be tuned into that. So we really, and parents and everybody involved in the project needs to know, like, what we're doing, the purpose of it, the procedures, the risks, the benefits. Everybody needs to do that. And you know something, that sounds onerous, but it's not. You know, there's lots of simple forms. It can be shared with others to gain consent. And confidentiality and anonymity is really important to safeguard children and their identities. And you know, we can use pseudonyms, we can inform parents how to both secure the data and others. And respect is really important, so honouring participants' kind of perspectives and experiences and cultural backgrounds. I mean, fundamentally, we're avoiding harm and we're balancing power, and we're supporting inclusive practice. We're maintaining integrity and honesty and transparency. We're following codes of conduct, and we're respecting how we disseminate the results. And again, it's about continuous reflection and review. One of the things we found on our Froebelian Futures project was that the practitioners were actually really delighted to go through this. They were saying that, you know, in their some of their qualifications, they'd never actually looked at ethical considerations as such. So they really enjoyed doing this. They thought it was really of key importance, as I do and as you do. So yes, I think that there's lots of things to consider, but I don't think, and I think people get worried about it, but I think it's really taken care of very, very simply by ensuring you're following those ethical concerns.
One of the things for me, I always think, is that it's more because everybody knows everybody. There's maybe a certain level of trust there already with the participants. So the informed consent is easier to maybe explain or, you know, have buy-in from people, that they feel more comfortable maybe taking part in research like that, rather than where, you know, somebody external is coming in and they're not sure what it's about and who these people are and so on. Just before I come to you, Kathleen, can I just ask Lynn a little bit then about how to get started, what methods you use, what methodology you use, and you know, how anybody listening to this will kind of just take the first step in practitioner inquiry.
Absolutely. And I think it's really helpful to have these little steps as well, because it is a systematic process of investigation to improve practice. So we need to kind of know what steps are involved. The one thing I would say very simply is to identify a focus. So an area of concern, I had my block playroom. I was really concerned about children's creations getting knocked over, so I wanted to develop that. So I had a focus, and then you're thinking about formulating a question. You can run that by somebody else, because really what you want to do is kind of keep your question quite specific. It guides your research, but it doesn't need to go too big. I think that can sometimes be the thing that throws people off, and you just bring them back to your question and helping them focus on that. I know that this can sometimes freak people out, but I think it's really important to review a little bit literature. So reviewing literature around your topic, so it deepens your understanding to inform your inquiry. And then, of course, you're absolutely right. You think about your methodology and then your methods. I think that all practitioners are already ethnographers, and they would maybe say, what on earth is that? But really, it's the study of human culture, it's intense observation in natural settings, and I want to say to practitioners it's what they do every day. But ethnography kind of views children as competent informants. They're co-collaborators in the research, or interpreters in their own lives and the lives of others. And you're gaining children's accounts. And everybody that knows about ethnography will know that it relies on first-hand experiences, and it's the personal involvement in the lives of the people being studied. We did a piece of prolonged fieldwork that was ethnographic. We were a bit concerned with tick box testing of children and assessment of children, and staff were a bit kind of uneasy about that kind of way of being with children. So we introduced a new way of pedagogical documentation called lived stories that included the children in the project, included the staff and parents, in order to create something different that we were all happy with, that captured children's rich lives. And so that was another wonderful piece of ethnography that we did in our setting. And, when we talk about the methods, you're thinking about the methodology. And as I say, I think every practitioner is an ethnographer, but there are, of course, different ways to different other methodologies. But when we're thinking about the data and the methods that go with that, often we're thinking about qualitative methods, so observation or interviews or surveys. We're observing children every day, and we can use that to inform our research and as an ethnographer. But there's also quantitative assessments where, I really liked one thing that we did once was a little mapping of children that were using spaces. So we created little maps. When a child went to a particular area, we were mapping it, and then of course you can build on that quantity by looking at how many other children attend that area. You can get the richest of data from that. Just helps you understand if you've got the room right. But what do the children tell us? What are they telling us, which is maybe more important? So you can collect your data through a variety of different methods. And then, of course, the next step is to analyse that data. So, and actually, in thinking about this, the practitioners already do this. They already analyse their data. They look at patterns, they look at themes in their observation, they look at trends, and they're really familiar with their own context and whatever is specific to their particular context. And they're looking at patterns. Like if a child is spending all day long in the block play corner, they're speaking about it, but then they're drawing conclusions. So when you've got all these different ways of carrying out the research, but you're drawing conclusions after you're analysing your data, and and if you've done some reading, you'll be maybe linking it to that, or you'll certainly be brave linking it to your previous knowledge. Then you're reflecting on these findings, like what insights have you gained? I mean, and this is stuff, again, what practitioners do every day of their lives, and what changes need to be made. I know that. And then perhaps there's an action that will be put in place as a result of these findings. And then you're evaluating this work. It isn't just, as I say, with practitioner inquiry, it isn't this one-stop thing. It's got to continue. We're learning all the time from what we're doing. As I say, Laura McGinn's work talked about the process rather than the end action. Then, of course, let's hope that the practitioners are keen to share their or disseminate their findings. Let's hope they'll maybe put on a mini conference, or they'll share it with their regulators, or they'll share it with other staff. They'll really celebrate what they're doing, and that learning grows, reflect on the whole process, what they could have done differently, what worked really well. And again, none of that will come as a surprise to anyone. Practitioners themselves will know that they do all this most days, except it's not being kind of formulated. So that's why I really want us to shout from the rooftops about practitioners being researchers. Thank you.
That's a great potted summary of the steps involved, and the important bit is the sharing it, and the parents can see as well the outcome of what you started with them. Kathleen, I'll bring you in now. Have you thoughts or ideas to share, or reflections on what Lynn has outlined there to us?
Yes, hi Maura. I suppose I love, how passionate Lynn is about practitioner inquiry, and I feel quite as passionate as well. I love the fact the way she describes like systematic investigation, the collaborative nature of practitioner inquiry, how it can give insights into educators' practice, describing it like a niche that needs to be scratched or wants to be scratched. I kind of feel that, over the years, many educators in Ireland have been engaging in practitioner inquiry without actually realising or documenting it or following any sort of systematic inquiry cycle. So for me, it's really important and a real opportunity for us to, I suppose, spotlight their practice, to let educators or practitioners, I know we're using these two words interchangeably, but they're both the same thing. I really want them to be able to see that, their practice is important. How they contribute to children's well-being and development is important, and how through the whole cycle of inquiry they can actually, show their expertise and their skills, and through this collaboration with others, how it really can bring about changes. And they may be very small or they may be large. And I think I also want to enable practitioners to be able to defend their practice, so that they can actually say, well, we engaged in this, we focused on this, we developed our inquiry questions, we thought about the data, the information that we currently have, we have analysed it, we have looked at, finding other ways to confirm maybe our suspicions or our itch that we needed to scratch, that this is a good area to concentrate on. And, enabling them to share this practice, to be able to shout from the rooftops and say, we actually are now dedicated practitioner inquiries. And, it's part of their everyday practice. So it's not something that they need to be scared of, but it's something to celebrate and to work with. And, as Lynn said, it just doesn't stop with one research project. It actually is continuing. And I think once educators or practitioners grow into that space of engaging in cycles of inquiry, it just becomes normal part of their practice. And again, the cycles of inquiry don't always need to follow in one linear sequence, but they can go back and forwards. So people might find a focus for the research, and they might do some external reading, look to literature, and that might change the focus of their research entirely. So, I think as a method and a concept, it's really suited to practitioners, to educators. And I love the way Lynn has said, she wanted to bring this to Scotland. We would love to bring this to Ireland as well and create, a large community of practitioner inquiries, that they're confident, they can speak about their practice, they are proud to highlight it and show it, that we have lots of examples then that Ireland can compare and show and be proud of. So yes, I really love the whole concept of practitioner inquiry.
And I think, you talk, Kathleen, about bringing it to Ireland. I think, we've seen from the likes of the awards that we've held previously, and that there is the beginning of that. Early Childhood Ireland has been involved in communities of practice before, research circles. So it's kind of bringing that to the fore again. And for me, I suppose the other thing I love about practitioner inquiry is how it involves children, that it isn't research that's being done at a staff meeting where we need to change the block corner, what are we going to come up with? And then the children come in, 3 weeks later and everything is different and nobody knows why it's changed. That the children are active participants in the practitioner inquiry as well is one of the things that I really like about the idea. So,
Absolutely.
Kathleen.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say absolutely, but I was also going to say that, early childhood settings are rich in data. They have huge amounts of information. And, to use this information in a very systematic way is so important to showcase their practice as well and to highlight it.
So I suppose the reason we're talking about practitioner inquiry now at this juncture is that in Early Childhood Ireland we've started that process of kind of maybe broadening that community of practice. So Kathleen, do you want to tell us a little bit about the practitioner inquiry project that we're about to embark on in Early Childhood Ireland?
Yes, of course, Maureen. So we have, I suppose, put out a call for people or educators to get involved in this program. Our program will consist of online Zoom training sessions or CPD for educators. And through these sessions, we'll again look at the whole cycle of inquiry. We'll look at reflective practice, the importance of it, their data gathering, their baseline data, examples from practice. We'll support them with project planning and dissemination and impact evaluation as well. So this program is going to run from March to June, and during that course of it, they will also receive an on-site visit. And the visit to the setting itself will be really valuable in terms of supporting educators to refine their focus and probably develop a question around that itch that they need to scratch. And also there'll be some online one-to-one support and telephone support as well. So we're really excited to get this program off the ground, and Lynn has been a huge inspiration to us in developing this program. So I'd really like to thank you for that, Lynn. And we feel it's here's to a bright future of practitioner inquiry participants.
Great. So thank you both so much for taking part in this episode. It's been lovely to hear and hear the simplicity of the ideas, that it isn't groundbreaking, but it is in its simplicity, that it is things like mixed ages, the block area, developing the outdoor area, relates to maybe small but very significant and impactful impacts for children. So I'd like to thank you both for taking the time to come on the podcast today. Thank you both.
Thank you, Maura.
And thank you for listening to this episode of Early Childhood Ireland's podcast, which is proudly supported by Aricus Insurance. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and spread the word to your friends and colleagues, and stay tuned for our next episode.